If you need help deciding whether Detroit Become Human is the right cinematic gaming experience for you, this video will answer all of your questions. We'll start with a 60-second, too long didn't read overview of the game, so you can tap out early if it doesn't appeal to you. After that, we'll look at the detailed mechanics, so you can get a real feel for what it's like to actually play the game while contrasting similar games along the way. Then we'll finish up by answering some more practical questions to help you decide whether Detroit Become Human is worth your time and your money today. Detroit Become Human is an action-packed, emotional, cinematic experience where every decision you make will affect the outcome of the story with a large number of possible endings, many of which could result in the death of your favorite character. Playing as 3 different androids, you'll be immersed in a near future where many humans no longer have a job, and androids start to get a bit Skynet-y, exploring similar themes as the movie I, Robot. In each chapter, you'll spend most of your time navigating an enclosed environment, choosing what to say to other characters while analyzing clues and reconstructing events with your clever android brain, occasionally interacting with the environment by pushing a button or 2. All possible variations of the story are laid out at the end of each chapter as a decision tree, highlighting alternatives that you could have experienced had you made a slightly different decision, giving you a reason to go back and try them. So if you like the sound of incredible visuals and a thought-provoking story that's better than anything Netflix ever wrote, where your choices genuinely matter, then Detroit Become Human may be your cup of tea. If you haven't played similar titles from the developer Quantic Dream before, this next section will go into the detailed mechanics to show you what it's like to actually play the game. But if you're already familiar with the likes of Beyond Two Souls or Heavy Rain, you might want to skip ahead. So please check the timestamps in the description below. Set in the year 2038, the game takes place in a world where androids have become a normal part of everyday life. Many of them simply fulfill everyday tasks, such as cleaning the house, walking the dog, or caring for the elderly. Many androids are embraced or even loved by their human families, but others suffer a life of abuse from the darker side of humanity. Throughout the game, you'll see the futuristic city of Detroit through the eyes of 3 different androids. Connor is an RK-800, an experimental detective android helping the police investigate crime scenes and even negotiate hostage situations. Then we have Kara, an AX-400 that is essentially a housemaid in a broken home, suffering abuse at the hands of her drug addict owner. Then finally, we have Marcus, an RK-200 that cares for a wealthy, wheelchair-bound artist. You will take it in turns to guide each android through their story. You'll do one chapter as Connor, the next as Kara, then Marcus, then rinse repeat, progressing each story one step at a time with 32 chapters in total. Their paths do cross at some point, but exactly how depends on the choices you make from the very beginning of the game, with many, many different possibilities. Detroit Become Human is not an open-world game as such. Most chapters take place in a relatively enclosed space, such as a house, where you spend most of your time investigating clues or points of interest highlighted by a quick scan of the environment. You can even unlock bullet time style animations that you can rewind and fast forward to reconstruct and investigate events from the evidence available. Interacting with the environment is mostly limited to pushing a button to pick something up when prompted, or swiping on your controller or with your mouse to open a door. That may sound basic, because it is, but as you scan the environment, you are rewarded for being curious, as the simplest interaction could unlock new dialogue options, or even a new branch of the story entirely. So you'll find yourself searching for every last possible interaction, just in case you've missed something. Although you're basically pressing buttons to trigger animations so you can watch them unfold like you're still in a cutscene, there are moments of beauty in this surprisingly tactile system, such as playing the piano as Marcus, where you decide the tempo of the song by how fast you tap a button, and as the music speeds up and slows down, you're left with a feeling of control that connects you to and immerses you in the environment. You'll spend the rest of your time with the game in conversation with other characters, which brings us to one of the main strengths of Detroit Become Human. The acting of the NPCs is top-notch throughout, which is no surprise as we have an all-star cast from Lance Henriksen, aka Bishop from Aliens, to Clancy Brown from Starship Troopers and The Shawshank Redemption, to name but a few of the supporting cast, and the three main characters put in a stellar performance themselves. In conversation, you'll almost always be presented with a choice of responses or questions which don't just lead you down different branches of the story, but also give you an opportunity to roleplay each android in different ways, because the way you respond will dictate how the other character perceives you, whether it's levels of trust while negotiating a hostage situation, or levels of stress during a police interview. You can be aggressive, understanding, persistent, along with many other approaches, and you will end up experiencing a different story as a result. Combat, however, is very basic. You do fight in this game, but it doesn't venture far beyond pressing the right button at the right time when prompted to on screen in order to block a punch or roll onto the floor to dodge a bullet. Detroit Become Human is not a first-person shooter or some sort of beat-em-up. It's more about being taken on an emotional roller coaster while exploring and pressing a button or two when prompted. Whether it's interacting with the environment or with other characters, a quick response in an emergency, or a considered response to some freshly uncovered evidence, Detroit Become Human is ultimately about making decisions. And the game excels at presenting you with difficult choices. You know your decision will affect the story in some way, and you often find yourself either struggling to decide between multiple options that you want, or are forced to choose the least bad option because you don't want any of them. As a result, you are given many reasons to come back to each chapter just to see what happens if you choose a different option, as sometimes the seemingly smallest action or event can change the story in a dramatic way. Rather than keeping all of these choices a mystery, the game actually summarizes your options at the end of each chapter in the form of a decision tree, giving you a percentage completion, showing you the path you took, and highlighting other paths that were available and at what point. It doesn't necessarily tell you what you need to do to unlock new paths or what the consequence of that path might be, but it does just enough to entice you to replay that chapter at some point by making it clear what you did do and how many other options there were. These interactions and decisions, when combined with the immense visuals and quality acting, leads to some of the most immersive gameplay you will ever experience. Although the camera angles are mostly over the shoulder and can take some getting used to, and you could argue that the game is one long cutscene where you are occasionally asked for your opinion on something, the flow between the gameplay and the cutscenes is so seamless that Detroit Become Human is genuinely more like being a part of a movie than it is playing a game. And considering the story writing is some of the best in the business, exploring thought-provoking and often slightly uncomfortable themes, describing this game as a cinematic experience is no bad thing. It's action-packed and it's powerful, even if you do sometimes feel like a passenger in the story. Hopefully by now you have an idea of what it's like to actually play Detroit Become Human, so let's address some of the more practical considerations to help you decide whether the game is right for you today. In terms of learning curve, there basically isn't one. The game shows you some basic controls as part of the first chapter, but interacting with the environment and making choices is so straightforward that the learning curve is practically non-existent. Each chapter does vary in length, but generally speaking, they are short and sharp, making the game very convenient to pick up and put down for those of you that don't have hours to spare for gaming, even during your first playthrough. In terms of longevity, the story itself doesn't take much longer than, say, 10 hours to complete. But then, of course, we have the almost infinite replayability. From speaking to others who have already played the game, players tend to fall into one of these two categories. 1, they played it once, they loved it, meant to go back but never did. 2, they played it once, loved it, then went back and played it again, and again, and again. With that said, all players I've spoken to absolutely loved the game, and the Steam rating further reinforces that sentiment. but it's ultimately the completionists that will get the best value for money out of Detroit Become Human. I should mention that there are no DLCs for the game and essentially no mods. There are a few mods out there for various things, but it's not really that kind of game. It's all about experiencing the story of the base game, then going back to experience a different one again and again. Seeing as the game originally released in 2018, you can get some absolutely cracking discounts if you're patient enough to wait for a sale. For a long time, 50% was the standard discount, but that's recently increased to 60%, and there seems to be a sale about once a month. So please never pay full price for this game. And it's worth noting that there is a free demo to try if you're playing on PC and want to check your system can run the game. So, with all that said, is Detroit Become Human right for you today? The easy answer is this. At some point, everybody should play this game. The quality of the story and the sheer level of immersion takes this game way beyond which gaming genres you happen to prefer. Alright, you may not find the near-future sci-fi setting appealing, but even then, the core of the story runs so much deeper than the sci-fi setting. It's an emotive, cinematic experience that you would have to be a machine devoid of all emotion yourself to not be moved by. But if that's not enough to convince you, then consider this. On a PS5 or Xbox Series X with a 4K TV, you owe it to yourself to try this game, even if just for the gorgeous visuals. It plays great on Steam Deck due to simple controls for all you couch potatoes out there, of which I am one. The way it lays out the decision trees for you is a completionist's wet dream, and ultimately the barrier to entry is just so low, it's so accessible, that basically everyone should play Detroit Become Human at some point in their lives. The only issue I could potentially fathom is if you particularly enjoyed one of the previous titles, Beyond Two Souls or Heavy Rain, then you might be able to pick a few holes in this game. But on the whole, every player I've spoken to thinks Detroit Become Human is a clear upgrade on both previous games. However, if you do enjoy Detroit Become Human, you owe it to yourself to go back and try Beyond Two Souls, which has some incredible acting from Elliot Page and can be picked up for a decent price in regular sales. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask, or if you already own the game and have some additional information you'd like to add, please let us all know in the comments below. If you found the video useful, please leave a like for the algorithm gods, and if you enjoy this style of review, consider subscribing for more content, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!